Quincy's legs were paralyzed. Overnight, the once celebrated golden boy fell into a quagmire. Having adored him for many years, I took advantage of his vulnerability. He mocked himself. "You're after me, but I'm just a cripple now." I glanced at his legs, unconcerned. "It's just the legs that are useless, not your reproductive function." At night, the usually restrained Quincy pulled me to sit on his lap. He whispered, "I heard you're good at writing." I frantically shook my head in denial. "No. My back hurts." Quincy was paralyzed. His girlfriend left him, his brother betrayed him, and his illegitimate brother took his place. Overnight, the darling of heaven fell into despair, deserted by all. As I held flowers at the door of the hospital room, I paused. Quincy was sitting on the hospital bed, his back to me, his lean body slightly moved. He reached out to grab a water glass from the table beside him. Either he couldn't reach it or it was an accident. The glass fell to the floor and shattered. The sound was especially sharp and piercing in the quiet hospital room. Quincy hung his head, his fingers curled up. He clenched the blanket tightly. The once proud man now exuded an air of defeat and gloom. In the stark white hospital room, he seemed like a lonely, trapped beast. It made my eyes well up with tears, suppressing my emotions. I knocked on the door. Quincy turned his head. The moment our eyes met, his pale face and the faint red in his pupils made my heart ache. Seeing me, surprise flashed in Quincy's eyes, and other emotions I couldn't quite discern. Fleeting, he spoke before I could, his voice hoarse. "Why are you here?" I strode forward, holding the flowers, with a mischievous smile. "To laugh at you. The once adored Quincy is now neglected. Once, two people told me in front of you that they met the love of their life and would never leave." I chuckled lightly. That was all it was. My words were full of sarcasm. Every sentence struck at the heart. Quincy, upon hearing this, did not get angry or emotional. He silently listened to my endless taunting. He watched as I called the nurse to clean up the broken pieces on the floor. He watched as I carelessly threw the wilted flowers in the vase into the trash. I cleaned the neglected vase, filled it with water, and placed fresh flowers in it. I looked around the room. "You don't even have someone to look after you. How miserable." Quincy rarely responded. "It's lunchtime," implying that the caretakers had gone for a break. But what did that matter? The young master didn't even have someone to take turns watching over him. After I was done, I pulled up a chair and sat down facing him. The red in his eyes had dissipated. I stared at him, from his hair down to his legs. Perhaps my gaze lingered on his legs too long. Quincy voluntarily said, "They're gone. The doctor said I'll have to use a wheelchair from now on." His voice was calm, with no fluctuations. It must have taken many days and nights for him to accept his situation and speak of it so naturally. I finally raised my eyes, which I had been keeping down. Tears could no longer be held back. Silently, they streamed down. The mask of light-hearted cruelty I had been wearing finally fell. Quincy's gaze flickered slightly. His lips parted gently. He whispered, "Why cry? I'm not dead yet." I threw myself onto him and embraced him. My crying was no longer restrained. Quincy did not push me away. His hands fell to his sides, clenched into fists. 5 years ago, when I went abroad, he had embraced me for the first time. It was a farewell, but also an act of charity. Back then, his chest was broad and warm. Now, the man I embrace is but a shadow of his former self, uncomfortably angular and cold. "Quincy, marry me," I said as I emerged from the restroom, having wiped away my tears. My words jumped abruptly to the subject. Quincy, who had been staring out the window, suddenly turned his gaze to me. I continued, "You're now the outcast of your family. They'd love nothing more than to see you stuck in the mud forever. You must know, everyone outside is laughing at you for having nothing. They laugh at your usurped position as the heir by your illegitimate brother, at your mother's jewelry taken over by your father's mistress, and at your girlfriend, who wasn't after vanity, leaving you. I heard Tiffany got engaged to Quill, whom you treated like a brother, in just a month. Are you upset?" My words turned Quincy's gaze icy cold. It was intentional. I wanted to rip open his wounds. "Quincy, let me be your trump card. An alliance with me is the only way you can protect yourself." I looked him straight in the eye, determined he would agree. I was his best and most correct choice at the moment. Quincy closed his eyes briefly, sinking the coldness in his gaze. His dark eyes were calm like deep waters. He asked me, "What do you want?" I stared at him intensely, making him look away. He knew what I wanted. "Don't you know what I'm after?" "I've always been after you." Quincy gave a short, self-deprecating laugh. You want me, but I'm already a broken man. You're making a losing deal. I stared at the space between his legs. Bluntly, I said, it's the legs that are broken, not the reproductive function. Quincy, usually so composed and proper, was visibly shaken by my shocking words. His usually pale face turned slightly red. Without a word, Quincy pulled a blanket over his lower body, blocking my view. His reaction made me tease him even further. Pretending to ponder, I said, should I check it? Quincy's tone was slightly annoyed. Wendy, I smiled at him, not at all embarrassed by my own words. Quincy, only I can help you turn the tables now. Have you thought it through? Quincy looked up and gazed at me quietly. Silence lingered. 2 months ago, Quincy was in a car accident. He was saved, but his legs were paralyzed. From now on, he would have to live in a wheelchair. Who is Quincy, the legitimate son of H City's wealthiest man, born into privilege, handsome, and intelligent, a standout among the young elites in high society, the esteemed young Master Chi. His future was boundless, brightly evident. But the accident plunged this favored son into an abyss. Once news of Quincy's paralysis spread, the winds shifted. The family's illegitimate son was legitimized, taking over his position in the company. His longtime girlfriend also abandoned him, decisively breaking up. She got engaged to another man in less than a month. Former friends who had been like brothers to him kicked him while he was down. Overnight, Quincy was deserted by everyone. Everyone was laughing at him. Hearing the news, I rushed back from abroad overnight. I came to see him at the first opportunity. My proposal of marriage was a transaction, but also driven by my own desires. With my family's support, his fair-weather friends and relatives would think twice. Only then could he secure his position as the heir. After a lengthy silence, Quincy said in a soft voice, even if I have no feelings for you, would you still want to trade marriage with me? I smiled calmly and resolutely. Yes, feelings can be cultivated. Quincy is a good man. Even if he were disabled, I wouldn't mind, because I really like him. I like him so much that I can't extricate myself. When you truly meet someone who resonates with your body, mind, and soul, you'll understand that love is beyond your control. My fondness for Quincy is no secret in our circle. Almost everyone knows it. Quincy knows it too. We were childhood sweethearts, well matched in social status, but childhood bonds couldn't compete with fate. The moment he chose to accept Tiffany, I vanished from his world. I don't blame him, nor do I hate him. He always kept his distance in the past, never giving me any hope. A person secretly in love cannot demand reciprocation or hold any grudges. In the 5 years since I left, I thought I could let go. But the moment I saw Quincy, I realized I couldn't. When you meet someone breathtaking in your youth, it's hard to ever forget them. All right, the deal is sealed. Quincy extended his hand, signaling cooperation. His hand, like him, was very attractive, but this gesture felt distant and bothersome to me. I reached out and intertwined our fingers under his indifferent gaze. Holding on tightly, I smiled at him and said, stamp it. The news that I was going to marry Quincy spread. The wolves and tigers lurking around him calmed down. These days, I've been running to the hospital. Every visit, I bring fresh flowers. Today, it was a bouquet of sunflowers. Quincy sat up in his hospital bed, working on his computer. His slender fingers moved across the black keys. His expression was serene. As I arranged the flowers, I watched him intently. He felt uncomfortable under my gaze. Frowning, he said, can you stop staring at me? I feigned innocence. I can't help it. How about you give me a kiss, and I'll stop looking? Quincy glanced at me sideways. He saw right through my little schemes. He pursed his lips and chose to ignore my gaze. I sighed with disappointment, not hiding it. The tapping of the keyboard was exceptionally clear in the quiet room. I knew he was racing against time to reclaim what was his. Even though he was disabled, Quincy wasn't crushed by it. He had lost a lot of weight recently, his features becoming even more sharply defined. The collarbone at his neckline stood out, subtly moving with his breathing. The black mole in the center of his collarbone was particularly striking against his pale skin, drawing my gaze. As I was absorbed in watching him, a pair of well-defined hands began to button up the shirt at the collar. I looked at him gloomily. There really was no need to guard against me like this. I wasn't about to lose control and devour him right there in the hospital. Although I had been yearning for him for many years, I hummed lightly, you button up now. But after we're married, I'll be the one unbuttoning. Quincy's fingers paused, He looked at me, took a deep breath, and slowly exhaled. Wendy, what exactly did you learn abroad all these years? I used to be somewhat spoiled. With 9 older brothers and cousins at home, I was the only girl among the younger generation. I was always closely guarded and quite pampered. I tend to blush easily in front of Quincy. He's so well behaved. Quite different from now. I've learned a lot. Do you want me to send you my class schedule? I teased Quincy with word games. He glanced at me and ignored me, his attention fixed on the computer screen. I cut some fruit and handed it to Quincy. He took a few bites and then stopped eating, closing his laptop. He rubbed his temples. Tired? I volunteered. Let me massage that for you. But as I reached out, Quincy grabbed my hand. His expression was serious as he looked at me. What's wrong? I asked. He abruptly said, could you go downstairs and buy me a drink? What kind of drink? Coffee. I was a bit surprised. Coffee. He never liked coffee. He always preferred tea. Despite my confusion, Quincy affirmed, yes, coffee. I didn't think much of it. People change over 5 years. I left the hospital room and headed downstairs. Just as I stepped out of the elevator, I realized I had forgotten my phone. Reluctantly, I headed back. When I returned, I saw the curtains around Quincy's bed were drawn. A tightness gripped my heart, anxiety and worry filling my mind. I rushed in and pulled the curtains open, freezing at the scene before me. My pupils dilated, my brain went blank, and I just stood there, unable to react. The sound of the toilet flushing came from the bathroom. My gaze fell on Quincy's hands. One held a personal item and the other a wet wipe, frozen in the act of cleaning as I barged in. Quincy closed his eyes, suppressing his emotions. His voice, restrained yet tinged with anger, commanded, get out. I snapped out of it, turned, and walked out, my mind in turmoil. After a brief moment of embarrassment, worry dominated my thoughts. I worried if my intrusion might have hurt Quincy's pride or made him feel embarrassed. I blamed myself for my recklessness and thought about what to say to ease the tension. After a moment of hesitation, the words that came out were, that, it's big. The silence in the room was deafening. As I awkwardly covered my mouth, Quincy's cold voice came through the curtain. What, have you seen others to make such a comparison? I was baffled. Others? That was a misunderstanding. I quickly defended myself. I haven't, even though I've never eaten pork. I've seen pigs run. I have some concept of these things. I turned back and said to Quincy inside, I've only seen yours. The room fell silent again. This conversation was taking a strange turn. Why was I arguing about this with Quincy? Miss Wen, a nurse emerged from the bathroom, breaking the uncomfortable silence. When the curtain was drawn back, Quincy was neatly dressed. He glanced at me lightly, and I, feeling awkward, quickly grabbed my phone from the bedside table. I'll go get your coffee, I said, and hurriedly left. The day before Quincy was discharged, I saw Tiffany at the hospital. As she passed by, it took me a few seconds to realize what had happened. She seemed not to have seen me. Or perhaps she didn't recognize me. Suddenly, my emotions were dragged back to 5 years ago. Quincy was 3 years older than me. During the university entrance exams, I wanted to attend the university he was at. Just 3 days after I shared my university choices with him, Quincy publicly acknowledged Tiffany's existence. My spirits plummeted because of Tiffany's appearance. Gathering my thoughts, I pretended nothing was amiss when I entered Quincy's hospital room. There was an extra basket of fruit in the room. I casually asked, who came by? Quincy replied indifferently, an old subordinate, someone unimportant. I frowned secretly at his words. Quincy was lying to me. The fruit was from Tiffany, yet he claimed it was from a subordinate. Annoyed, I approached him and muttered, Quincy, He didn't look up, his eyes fixed on his phone. We're planning to get married, so a kiss isn't too much, right? What? When Quincy looked up, I kissed his cheek, aiming for his lips. He dodged quickly, and I only managed to kiss his cheek. Quincy's face flushed with annoyance. Wendy, this is a hospital. I grinned shamelessly. No one saw, and even if they did, what's the big deal? I'm just kissing my fiancé. Perfectly respectable. After Quincy was discharged, he didn't return to the Quincy's family home. Instead, he stayed at a riverside villa transferred to him by his mother. Before he moved in, the villa was renovated to accommodate his wheelchair. I visited him during the day and returned home in the evening. Although I wanted to take care of him closely, not only did Quincy disapprove, but my brothers were even more opposed. My eldest brother warned me, if you're not home by 8, I'll come and get you myself. I smiled sheepishly. bro? You're so busy, no need to worry about me, I'll come home. My brother smiled warmly. It's fine, I'm busy, but others have time. In front of him, I smiled obediently. You're such a good brother. Turning away, I was on the verge of tears. Having too many brothers is also a trouble. Quincy's villa was a 45-minute drive from my house. I had already gotten my driver's license and could drive myself. The villa's staff knew me well. I came and went as I pleased. During this time, my biggest hobby was teasing and flirting with Quincy while pushing him around the garden every day. However, I hadn't gone for 2 days straight. 2 days ago, while at Quincy's house, I was video calling my best friend. My best friend exclaimed in distress, "Wendy, are you lovesick? You're still with him even after his accident. You're incredible." I laughed. "But I really like Quincy. I have money. Supporting and caring for him is no problem." My best friend asked, "Really? You want to marry him? How will you manage your marital life?" Conversations between best friends are always candid and unrestrained. I casually said, "No problem, that's not difficult. Firstly, he's in great physical condition, I've seen it. Secondly, I've been good at horseback riding since I was young." My best friend was stunned by my words. "Wendy, you can say these things without blushing now." I chatted fearlessly with my best friend until my phone was almost dead, then said goodbye. After hanging up, I turned around and was shocked. Quincy, who had been inside, was now in the courtyard. Apparently, he had heard everything I'd said to my best friend, Secretary Lynn, who was pushing Quincy, adjusted his glasses awkwardly and smiled silently at me. Quincy's gaze made my own vision waver. Flustered and red-eared, I turned and ran away. Today, when I arrived, I encountered Quincy's right-hand man, Secretary Lynn. He's a man whose appearance isn't striking, but he possesses a very gentle demeanor. When he saw me, he smiled and greeted me. I nodded and headed upstairs. "Miss Wen," having walked 3 meters away, Secretary Lin suddenly called out to me. I looked at him questioningly. Secretary Lin advised, "Sir is in a very bad mood today. Maybe you should visit him later." I paused for a moment, then replied, "Understood." Secretary Lin turned and left, and I looked up towards the second floor, deep in thought. After hesitating for a few seconds, I decided to go upstairs. Quincy spends most of his time working in his study. I tiptoed closer, quietly approaching. When I reached the door of the study, I stopped in my tracks. Quincy was sitting in a wheelchair, his back to me. He faced the window, beyond which the sky was overcast. The room was dim, not a single light turned on, casting his solitary silhouette into a stark black and white tableau. I felt inexplicably gloomy and oppressed, just as I was about to call out to him. I choked up at the sight of his movements. My throat felt dry and painful. Quincy, supporting himself with his hands on the wheelchair, tried to stand up. His legs, devoid of strength, failed him, and he fell back into the seat. He tried over and over, failing each time. Watching him slump over in his wheelchair, his head bowed down, I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Outside, lightning struck and thunder boomed, swallowing the sound of his laughter but not the grim fate of his suffering. I stood at the doorway, tears streaming down my face, fearing he might notice. I could only cover my mouth and turn away, leaning against the cold, pale wall as I stifled my sobs. When the sound of the wheelchair moving reached me, I quickly hid in a nearby guest room. Quincy left the study and entered his bedroom. Soon after, I could hear the sound of water running from the bathroom. I cautiously stepped out of the guest room and, as if driven by some unseen force, walked into his study. The study was in disarray. Not only were there scattered documents on the floor, but also a broken cup, evidence of his turbulent emotions. My gaze swept across the room, pausing when I spotted an unexpected splash of red on the desk. It was a wedding invitation for Tiffany and Quill's engagement. Quincy's computer was still on, the screen frozen on a chat window. "No matter how good you are, you can't hide the fact that you're disabled. You're not worthy of her." It hit me in an instant. Tiffany's engagement banquet was today, and Quill had sent a message to mock him, cruelly reopening his wounds. When Quincy appeared on the first floor, I had just finished a phone call. Sitting on the sofa, I waved at him. He was dressed in oatmeal-colored home clothes, with a gray blanket covering his legs, his expression as cool as ever. There was no sign of the earlier distress and frenzy from the study. "Quincy, what happened to your hand?" I asked, taking his left hand, which had a fresh cut on the pinky, likely a result of his earlier distress in the study. He pulled his hand away from mine. replying indifferently, "It's nothing." It pained me to see him like this, but I had to act as if nothing was wrong. "I'll get the first aid kit." "No need," half threatening, half joking, I said. "Would you prefer I disinfect it with my saliva?" Quincy suddenly looked up. He looked at me with a helpless expression when he met my expectant gaze. "Compromising," he said. "Go get the medical kit." I smiled. I realized that as long as I shamelessly flirted with him, Quincy was easy to talk to. The weather forecast had been warning of an approaching typhoon for several days. The weather was fine in the morning. It was overcast when I arrived. By now, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and thunder and lightning roared. The wind was getting stronger. Quincy looked outside and urged me, "You should head back early." Just as he finished speaking, a downpour began. The leaves outside rustled loudly in the wind. Trying to conceal my joy, I said with some difficulty, "I might not be able to leave today." Quincy was unmoved and replied, "I'll have the driver take you home." I accused him, "You're letting me go in this weather and even exploiting your employee. Even the driver's life matters. Besides, I'm your fiancé. What's wrong with staying at your place for one night?" My voice quieted under Quincy's stern gaze. After a few seconds of silent standoff, I blurted out loudly, "Quincy, I don't want to leave." Quincy was silent for a moment, then sighed helplessly. "You can stay, but how will you explain this at home?" How to explain? Of course, by calling and honestly reporting. I emphasized the dangers of traveling in a typhoon. I also repeatedly stressed that Quincy was a gentleman. On the phone, my elder brother snorted coldly after hearing me out. "You've calculated your moves well today. Do you think I'm worried about Quincy? I'm worried about what you might do to him. Truly worthy of being my own brother." I admit I had ulterior motives, so I wore Quincy's pajamas. His clothes reached mid-thigh on me. With my pale legs flashing before his eyes, he glanced at them and then looked away. He turned and went back to his bedroom. I followed him, but he stopped me at the door. Smiling, I asked, "Are you going to take a shower? Do you need help?" Quincy coldly refused. "No need. You don't have to be shy. We'll have to face each other openly sooner or later. Besides, it's not like I haven't seen you before." Quincy's ears turned red, and he said with a warm tone, "Wendy." I responded, "I'm here." I decided to stop provoking him. "I'll wait in your room. Call me if you need anything. I'll leave once you're done." I was genuinely worried about him. Although his room was modified to facilitate his movements, I still felt concerned. Quincy turned his wheelchair and didn't refuse further. Watching him enter the bathroom and lock the door, I was momentarily speechless yet amused. Teasing him, I called through the bathroom door, "Are you sure you don't need help washing?" The sound of water was the only reply. I laughed outside for a while. As I laughed, my smile faded. I surveyed the bedroom environment. Thinking back to the scene in the study, my heart felt heavy. Quincy always appeared strong and calm in front of others. In private, he repeatedly tore himself apart and rebuilt himself in the darkness. I hoped he was happy, but I couldn't say it to his face. It was too much to ask of him. Suddenly, Quincy's phone on the bedside table began to vibrate. I walked over. The moment I saw the caller ID, my heart skipped a beat. It was a call from Tiffany. I wanted to answer the call and scold her. I wanted to accuse her of ingratitude. I remember her family was not well off. It was Quincy who gave her money to allow her to attend school and live a better life. They criticized her for planning to marry someone else yet still calling her ex. Their relationship was a lingering connection that had not been fully severed. When my fingertips touched the screen, I hesitated and pulled back. I answered Quincy's call without permission. "I wonder if he will be angry." "Tiffany, she is the only person who has ever made me feel jealous." Even though Quincy and I grew up together like childhood sweethearts, I still couldn't make him like me. Quincy's mother and my mother were best friends. As a child, Quincy's mother really liked me. She was extremely kind to me but distant with Quincy. This was because Quincy's mother was forced into marrying Quincy's father. Quincy was the result of that union. Their marriage was one of convenience. Thus, his mother was distant towards him. Seeing him reminded her of her coerced life, treated as a pawn in a business marriage. As for me, I've liked Quincy since I was little. I loved hanging around him, but he wasn't very fond of me. My mind was filled with many thoughts. Those old, long-buried memories were unearthed, lost in these recollections. Sleepiness overcame me unaware. I lay on Quincy's bed and fell asleep. In my dream, a young Quincy and an equally young me were fleeing. We ran desperately, but I fell and hurt my ankles so badly that I couldn't stand up. staring desperately and fearfully ahead. I felt utterly hopeless. Just then, the figure of Quincy, who had run ahead, came back for me. He crouched down to carry me. Just at that moment, a gunshot sounded from behind. The bullet flew towards me. Quincy took the bullet for me. Watching the fresh blood flow from Quincy's shoulder, something inside me completely snapped. In my dream, I was crying out for Quincy. My heart ached, until Quincy woke me up. "Wendy, are you okay?" Quincy's concerned eyes came into my view. It blurred the lines between dream and reality for me. I got up and threw myself into his lap, holding him tightly, burying my face in his neck. I cried, "You're still alive. That's wonderful." Quincy's body stiffened for a moment. Then he gently patted my back. In a low voice, he asked, "Did you have a nightmare?" His voice and actions soothed my emotions. I was awake now, but still shaken. I dreamed about when we were kidnapped as children. Quincy's patting hand paused on my back. Then he let it rest. He softly said, "It's all in the past." Using the nightmare as an excuse, I pretended to be scared and said I wanted to stay in Quincy's room, and I promised, "I'll just sleep on the other side. I won't do anything. I'm very quiet and well-behaved in my sleep. I definitely won't disturb you." Quincy naturally disagreed. After my persistent pleading, he finally relented, saying, "You can sleep here, but only on the floor." Although I was a bit disappointed, my plan had succeeded. I quickly made my bed on the floor, turned off the lights and lay down, quickly, fearing Quincy might change his mind. Staring at the pitch-black ceiling, I couldn't sleep with my nerves on edge. I tried to start a conversation with Quincy, but he only said, "Quiet," so I obediently shut my mouth. I lay there, eyes open, secretly using my phone. Half an hour later, I put the phone down and sat up. I leaned over the edge of the bed, gazing at Quincy's sleeping face. "So handsome, so beautiful," I quietly whispered. Quincy, the person before me, slept peacefully. Such long eyelashes, such a straight nose. His lips look so kissable. Everything about him is so beautiful. I muttered to myself, my gaze fixed on Quincy's lips. Unable to look away. "Quincy, stop thinking about that bad woman, Tiffany, okay? Look at me more, think of me more. Quincy, I really like you." Holding my face, I whispered softly, "Quincy, if you don't wake up, I'm going to kiss you." I held my breath unconsciously, and amidst the pounding of my heart, I lightly kissed Quincy's lips, just a light touch, and my heart felt like it was going to explode. After the kiss, I quickly lay back down. I covered my face with the blanket, and with a honey-sweet feeling, I drifted off to sleep, unaware in my slumber. In the darkness, Quincy opened his eyes. It's been nearly half a year, and Quincy has been incredibly busy. Gradually, he solidified his position within the Chi Corporation. However, he had lost the little weight he had managed to gain. He looked thinner. It pained me to see him like this, but all I could do was silently care. He had his pride and duties he needed to fulfill. All I could do was make sure he ate regularly and didn't stay up too late. He had to forge his own path through this thorny road to claim his throne, and he succeeded. Previously, Quincy left some leeway in his actions for courtesy's sake. Now, he was ruthless and decisive. He completely ousted his illegitimate younger brother from the game. He also usurped his father's power. He harshly dealt with his relatives. Now, the Quincy's family was under his command. During this time, Quincy received an invitation. Quill and Tiffany's wedding is set for next week. Quincy looked at the invitation without much expression. I thought he would just throw it in the trash, but to my surprise, he kept it. Jealously, I asked, "What, are you planning to crash the wedding?" Quincy replied coldly, "You're thinking too much. Tiffany and I are no longer connected. They dared to invite me, so I'll go just to see the spectacle." I studied his expression, unsure whether he had truly moved on. Tiffany was a thorn in my side because she had captivated all of Quincy's attention the moment she appeared. I despised Tiffany for having Quincy's affection and enjoying his kindness, only to betray him without hesitation when he was at his lowest. The Quill's family, being prominent and wealthy, had many celebrities gathered at Quill and Tiffany's wedding. Quincy became the center of attention as soon as he arrived. Even seated in a wheelchair, his presence was as commanding as ever, if not more formidable. Quincy had clawed his way back from the abyss. Those who had kicked him when he was down were now trembling, fearful of his revenge. One by one, they came up to him with forced apologies, their faces obsequious. Quincy smiled, but his eyes were cold. When the newlyweds came over to toast, Quill showed no guilt. Quincy, I'm glad you could make it, he said. Tiffany and I should thank you for making this possible. Before Quincy could respond, I couldn't help but retort, no, it's Quincy who should be thanking you, for showing him what true betrayal looks like. Quill's face darkened, but he dared not offend me. He could only mock me subtly. Wendy, after all these years, you finally found your opportunity to step in. Pity that Quincy will now have to marry a woman he does not love. His words struck a nerve. Seeing my clenched fist, Quincy took my hand in his voice earnest. Having Wendy as my wife would be my fortune. He stared coldly at Quill. Our relationship is none of your concern, Mr. Quill, you're being noisy. I looked at Quincy, warmed by his defense, but also feeling a pang of guilt. Quill was right. I had taken advantage of the situation. Come on, we all have known each other for so long. Why resort to squabbling like teenagers upon meeting? Tiffany, ever graceful and composed, tried to lighten the mood. She raised her glass with a smile. Quincy, this one's for you. Quincy didn't drink, simply stating, I've quit drinking. Tiffany kept her smile as she moved on with Quill to toast others. As she passed by me, she gave a slight smile and whispered, Miss Wen, you finally got what you wanted. Some words, though softly spoken, can precisely hit where it hurts the most. It was frustrating. I still lost in this exchange of barbs. At the banquet, I bumped into an old classmate from my studies abroad. He was mixed race and greeted me with a kiss on the hand. We chatted for a while until Quincy called. Are you done talking? He asked, his tone calm, but I sensed a chill. Let's go. I looked over at Quincy, who was watching me through the crowd. I quickly said goodbye to my classmate and walked over to Quincy. He was not in a good mood. On the way back, he had a cold expression on his face. I thought he was upset because of the newlyweds. Feeling uneasy, neither of us spoke. When we returned to the villa, the first thing Quincy said was to tell me to wash my hands. After I washed my hands and came out, he even took out a handkerchief to dry them for me. He wiped them very meticulously. I thought it was enough and tried to pull my hand back, but he held on tightly. I couldn't help but say, it's already clean. Quincy looked down and uttered a single word, dirty. Where is it dirty? I washed them very thoroughly. I protested as Quincy nearly rubbed my hands red. He was acting so out of character. It was all very puzzling to me. Suddenly, it dawned on me. I tentatively asked, Quincy, could it be, are you jealous, because of that hand-kissing gesture? I looked at Quincy, excited and hopeful. His hand-wiping paused. He denied it, saying, no. I smiled and stretched my hand towards his lips. Then let me give you a kiss. Quincy stared at my hand for a few seconds, then gently pushed it away. He repeated, dirty, but this time, his tone seemed more cheerful. 10 days later was my 24th birthday. For the past 5 years, I had spent my birthdays abroad. This time, my brothers at home said they wanted to celebrate it for me. My eldest brother took some time to talk to me. Do you know that Quincy has been secretly acquiring shares of the Quills family? His words left me bewildered. The Quills family was a prominent clan, but they had been declining over the decades. On the surface, they still looked glamorous, but inside they were decaying. It was only a matter of time before they collapsed, unless someone could turn things around. Of this generation, only Quill seemed capable, yet his abilities paled in comparison to Quincy's. Quincy has been very discreet and cautious in acquiring the Quills family's shares. And it took me a great deal of effort to find even a trace of evidence. My brother continued, Wendy, tell me, between his personal and professional life, which do you think dominates, and what personal motives might be mixed in there? I understood what my brother meant. Quill had kicked Quincy when he was down and also stole away Tiffany. My brother was suggesting whether Quincy still harbored feelings for Tiffany. Seeing my dispirited look, my brother ruffled my hair. Wendy, don't forget the promise you made to your brother initially. I won't stop you from loving someone, but I won't allow you to lose yourself. Quincy is excellent, but no matter how great he is, it doesn't change the fact that he is physically disabled. I don't discriminate against him. In fact, I even admire him a lot. But let's be clear, my sister absolutely cannot marry someone with a physical disability. Looking at my brother's serious expression, I opened my mouth. In the end, all I could say was, Big brother, I had lied to Quincy. My family absolutely did not agree to let me marry him. The so-called marriage was just a verbal agreement. It was a deception. The support from the Wen family for Quincy was something I had begged for. It was temporary. I never really intended to treat marriage as a transaction. To have him marry me, I wanted him to be free, I wanted him to be happy, I wanted him to be content. I also hoped that he would fall for me, then, maybe I would have the confidence and courage to defy my brother in secret. But does Quincy like me? I saw Tiffany at Quincy's villa. For a moment, I thought I was seeing things, but Tiffany's voice clearly reached my ears. Do you really plan to marry Wendy? Quincy's voice was cold, with a warning tone. That's none of your business. You never intended to marry her, did you? Tiffany chuckled lightly. Miss Wen is very straightforward, but unfortunately, she doesn't know that the person she cares about has been using her. She must be unaware that the person she likes is actually despicable and sinister. Quincy was furious and snapped. Shut up. Tiffany's voice was always gentle, softened by her southern accent. Fine, I won't mention her. Quincy, we are partners now. Why can't you show me some kindness? Forget it. Don't forget the deal you promised me after we take over the Quills family. Tiffany left. I hid outside the greenhouse, staring blankly at the grass beneath my feet. Quincy never intended to marry me. Quincy was using me. I chuckled self-mockingly. In a way, weren't we inadvertently in agreement? This marriage agreement was a well-concealed lie by both parties. What a joke. I laughed too. I swallowed a rotten fruit and couldn't help but cry. My elder brother said that Quincy was secretly buying shares of the Quills family, so Tiffany was his accomplice. Wasn't Tiffany married to Quill? Why would she do this? It seems that Quincy and Tiffany have always been in touch. Suddenly, I felt terrified. Is it terrifying that Tiffany truly betrayed Quincy? Does her marriage to Quill have anything to do with Quincy? I dare not think too deeply. I fled from the villa. The day after my birthday, I went to find Quincy. I drank a lot of alcohol. I was about to do something significant. I needed to bolster my courage. I tricked Quincy into a hotel and drugged him to have my way with him. The more I thought about it in the following days, the sadder I became. After the sadness, the anger grew. I felt incredibly stifled. Even if I was willing, Quincy shouldn't have truly deceived and used me. What frustrated me even more was that he had been in contact with Tiffany all along. I don't know where these malicious thoughts came from. But at that moment, I just wanted to sleep with Quincy. I had helped him so much, and he used me. I took it as my compensation. Sitting astride Quincy, I fumbled with his clothes. As I struggled with his belt, Quincy grabbed my hand. He lay on the white sheets, his face flushed. His voice was restrained and husky. Wendy, do you know what you are doing? I brushed off his hand, speaking fiercely. I'm sleeping with you. Stop moving. As I spoke, I used Quincy's tie to bind his hands. Quincy gritted his teeth. Wendy, you become audacious. He mocked me as I struggled with his belt. Do you even know how? I slapped him on his waist, fierce on the outside but timid inside. You'll see how capable I am soon. He was amused by my words. In truth, I had no experience. The little theoretical knowledge I had was all crammed in these last few days. I couldn't stand watching the videos. They disgusted me. I only read about it in texts. My movements were clumsy, and my hands trembled. Quincy's eyes reddened from the drugs, yet he endured. But when I kissed his collarbone, his body honestly shivered. Later, he coaxed me to untie the tie. I clung to my last bit of sanity and refused. That night, I had my way with Quincy completely. Was it beautiful? The biggest thing I felt was pain, but emotionally, it was satisfying. When I left the room, I left a note for Quincy. I heard everything between you and Tiffany at the villa. Don't worry, I never wanted you to marry me either. Verbal agreements don't count, but I've helped you so much. Spending a night with you as compensation. Let's never meet again. Also, you're not good at it. It took too long. Negative review. Quincy always has bodyguards around him. The custom watch on his wrist is hard to remove. He could call his bodyguards through the watch at any time. But he didn't. He still indulged my actions. I don't want to guess his intentions. After today, it all ends. I still hope he stays safe, happy, and fortunate. I still like him a lot, but I won't appear before him anymore. Even a loyal dog has its dignity. 3 years later, I bumped into someone I knew on a foreign street. On the street, Tiffany was struggling with a foreign man. I was just watching from a distance, not planning to intervene, until I saw the foreign man slap Tiffany and try to drag her into an alley. She was shouting for help. I had several friends with me, including 3 guys. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to save her. I really disliked Tiffany, but I'm not so heartless as to watch her suffer when I can help. She hadn't really crossed my bottom line. After rescuing Tiffany and chasing the man away, I walked away with my friends. Tiffany was shocked to see me. Miss Wen, it's rare to see you. Let's have a chat. I heard Tiffany's words but kept walking. Let's talk about Quincy. The name Quincy struck a nerve. Damn, my legs stopped. They were disobedient. They turned around and walked towards Tiffany. I found a nearby cafe and sat face to face with Tiffany. Tiffany took a light sip of her coffee, smiling, and said, "Fate really is wonderful, don't you think, Miss Wen?" I impatiently said, "You and I aren't on terms to have casual chats. You said you wanted to talk about Quincy, so get to the point." Tiffany always maintained a gentle and proper demeanor, despite my obvious annoyance. She still smiled back. "Miss Wen, you still hate me as always, then why did you help me?" I looked into Tiffany's eyes and said seriously, "I hate you because you betrayed Quincy. His legs were disabled, and you didn't hesitate to be with his brother. You're just a selfish ingrate. I saved you because as a woman, I couldn't just stand by and watch you be humiliated when I had the ability to help." Tiffany looked at me intently, her gaze complex. "Miss Wen, sometimes I really envy you. You have everything, so you can afford to be kind, generous, and sincere. You don't mind that Quincy is disabled because you have support behind you." I countered, "Even if you were me, you would still have betrayed Quincy, because your nature is selfish and ruthless. It's always profit first with you." Tiffany was silent for a while, then chuckled lightly. "Miss Wen, let's get back to the point. Considering your kindness to me today, I'll share a secret with you." I watched her, unsure of her intentions. Then, Tiffany revealed a shocking secret. She said, "Quincy and I were never in a romantic relationship. We were just in an employment relationship, a partnership. You always called me an ingrate, but I was really wronged. Quincy never even touched me. I thought about making our pretend relationship real, but he never gave me a chance. Then naturally I had to find a rich young man who could really give me a title, and Quill came to me himself. This secret was too absurd." Holding my mug, I was shocked yet skeptical. "Why are you helping Quincy to go against the Quill's family? Didn't Quill marry you in style, giving you a proper status?" Tiffany let out a cold laugh, her eyes flashing with hatred. "The Quill's family is nothing but a filthy, decaying swamp. They all deserve to die." Seeing Tiffany unconsciously tighten her fingertips, I frowned deeply and did not ask further. The coffee was finished. When leaving, Tiffany did not explain why Quincy pretended to be her boyfriend. She only left me with 2 sentences. "If you want to know, you'll have to ask Quincy. The coffee's on me. Thanks for your help." I had long blocked and deleted all contact information of Quincy, even changed my phone number. These years I have returned to the country, but I always avoided him. In 3 years, we had no interaction at all. Occasionally, I would see news about him, but it was just text. In these years, under the leadership of Quincy, the Quincy Corporation reached new heights. Standing at the pinnacle of the pyramid, he became more mysterious and low profile. No one could capture his photo. That conversation with Tiffany troubled me for a while. I admit I secretly rejoiced. Quincy and Tiffany were not in a romantic relationship, like a surprising Easter egg. But then I felt lonely and angry. So what? He would rather play a role with someone else than accept me. When he was deserted by everyone, I did so much for him, but it didn't touch him. The fact that he didn't like me was true. Thinking of this, I stopped agonizing over it. I continued with my own life. During this time, I was invited by a friend to a social party. I dressed up and decided to approach any attractive guy I liked. The best way to forget Quincy was to start a new romance. The party was at a bar, which was booked entirely. I danced with a few handsome guys with whom I clicked, and added their contact information. One blonde man was very proactive. He was tall, handsome, and well-spoken, like a prince. I was quite impressed with him. Later, we also went out a few times with mutual friends. After meeting today, he offered to take me home. I agreed. When we parted at the entrance of my building, the man suddenly lowered his head and kissed my cheek. I was surprised. It was too sudden. I didn't dodge. I seriously told him that he cannot have any intimate actions towards me without my consent. His attitude was good. He apologized. I smiled and forgave him. As I reached the door to unlock it, I heard footsteps behind me. Before I could turn around, I was knocked unconscious. When I awoke, I found my hands were tied. It was pitch black. My eyes were covered with a blindfold. I tried to struggle, but it was useless. Suddenly, I felt a chilling sensation. I felt someone quietly watching me. Suppressing my fear, I spoke out. Who are you? Why have you tied me up? I can give you money if that's what you want. The person remained silent. I heard the sound of fabric rubbing, then, someone touched my face. Their fingertips were cold. They brushed over my cheek. My lips trembled uncontrollably as fear took over. Tears streamed down my face. The hand that restrained me withdrew, but the tears fell even harder. In the next second, the black cloth blinding me was yanked away, suddenly thrust from darkness into light. I instinctively shut my eyes. It took several seconds before my vision normalized. I stopped crying and stared, teary-eyed, at the person standing beside the bed. It was Quincy. After 3 years, he reappeared before me in such a manner. He seemed taller, his features colder. His presence was overwhelming. He stood there. My gaze lingered on his legs for a long time. Quincy spoke coldly. It's been a while, Wendy. Regaining my composure, I looked at him and struggled briefly. Quincy, have you lost your mind? Why did you tie me up? Bending down, his imposing figure cast a shadow over me. He took out a handkerchief to wipe my tears. After drying my tears, he wiped my left cheek. His hand was forceful, causing pain. I turned my face away in protest, but he grasped my chin, forcing me to face him again. I'm in pain, Quincy, I said. Feeling wronged, his eyes, dark and deep, made me shrink back. He fixed his gaze on me and said, You slept with me. How could you go after someone else? Did you think that sleeping with me meant nothing happened? Wendy, you played me. He repeatedly emphasized that I had slept with him, as if I were some heartbreaker. That night 3 years ago had been deliberately forgotten by me. Now, brought up directly by him, memories flooded back. I felt both ashamed and guilty. Hearing him say I played him, I was stunned. Once I snapped back, I retorted defiantly. You've used me so much. What's wrong if I slept with you? You owe me. My eyes downcast, I muttered under my breath, and the experience was even terrible. Quincy paused for a moment. The atmosphere around him turned suddenly colder. I cautiously looked up at him, feeling uneasy. Quincy silently released his grip on me, my hands freed. I no longer cared about the pain in my face. I moved to the side, creating distance between us. Quincy's eyes darkened ominously, like a storm brewing. He loosened his tie with one hand and began unbuttoning his black shirt, one by one, revealing his muscular upper body. He said to me, Then let's sleep together again. This time I'll make sure you're satisfied. If you're not satisfied, I'll continue until you are. What comes out of the mouth brings disaster. That night I learned this firsthand. Quincy was domineering and fierce. His occasional tenderness was torturous like ants on bones. Over and over, he asked me if I was satisfied, crying. I nodded and said I was. He kissed my lips, then pulled me deeper into the tide. When I was on the verge of passing out from exhaustion, Quincy pulled me onto his lap. He asked softly, I heard you're good at riding. I frantically shook my head, denying it. No, I'm terrible at riding. Quincy chuckled lowly. Liar, you used to race horses and even showed me the trophies and photos. He coaxed me. Let's sleep after this. Okay. It proves that a man's words are deceitful. The old Quincy would blush and falter at just a few teasing words. Now, he has evolved. I'd become shameless. Quincy accused me of lacking commitment, pointing out that I failed to fulfill our agreed-upon arranged marriage. He complained that after our intimate encounter, I just walked away. He demanded that I take responsibility for him. His words left me speechless. Quincy sat across from me, gracefully eating his breakfast. As I watched him, my thoughts, which had been led astray, slowly began to return. Thinking of something, I said tiredly, Quincy, didn't you dislike me? Do you find it amusing to tease me like this? Quincy stopped eating. He looked at me, his brows slightly furrowed. I'm serious. I don't dislike you. His words took me aback, and my heart felt even more bitter. You like me, but you never wanted to marry me 3 years ago. I laughed sarcastically. It's not like you fell for me overnight. Quincy stood up and walked over to me. He took my hand and led me to the study room in the villa. My gaze fell on our intertwined hands, and my heartbeat quickened. Quincy showed me a document. I was confused. Take a look. Your elder brother has already reviewed this. I looked up at him in surprise, feeling nervous. At Quincy's gesture, I opened the document. I read it word by word. After reading it, my emotions surged with both surprise and disbelief. It was a marriage proposal, both substantial and sincere. Quincy watched my teary eyes and kissed my lips gently. It's not that I don't want to marry you, but rather I know I'm not worthy. I've always known you've been deceiving me to help me. How could the Wen family ever marry their precious gem to a disabled man like me? I widened my eyes, surprised by Quincy's realization. I thought I had hidden it well, but Quincy knew everything. Tears filled my eyes, making them look like those of a sad puppy, softening Quincy's gaze. His fingertips gently caressed my face, and suddenly he mentioned, I know you've met Tiffany and know what you talked about. I was shocked. You had someone follow me. Quincy tried to calm me. Don't be angry. I admit that I've secretly had someone watch over you while you were abroad these past few years. I was worried about you and wanted to know what you were doing. I hadn't noticed at all that someone had been tracking me, so, Quincy had been paying attention to me all these years. He knew everything about me. No wonder he appeared just when I started dating someone else. Feeling a bit guilty, I avoided his gaze, mentioning Tiffany. I couldn't help but ask, why did you pretend with Tiffany? Quincy replied succinctly, it avoids a lot of trouble, he explained. Having a cover story allows me to reject many suitors and naturally turn down business dinners meant to set me up. I've never touched her. It was merely an employment relationship, I said sourly. Oh, including me, right, after all. I was once the one who pursued Quincy the most. Seeing my displeased look, Quincy actually cracked a smile. Under my angry gaze, his eyes were tender. Wendy, I never really expected love. As you know, there was no love between my parents, but when I was left with nothing and abandoned by everyone, only you steadfastly chose to stay by my side. I'm not as illustrious as you think. I also have my dark and despicable sides. I greedily enjoy your love for me and am deeply jealous of your kindness towards others. I've realized my possessiveness towards you has exceeded my control. But I'm a disabled man who can't even stand. My eyes welled up, feeling both sour and sweet. Quincy, I have never despised you. Quincy curved his lips. I know, I like you, to be able to stand before you, to go to the Wen family to marry you, to be worthy of you. For the past 3 years, I've been working hard on my treatment. I stared at Quincy's legs, reflecting on the past events. I had witnessed the pain and agony he suffered because of his legs. It pained me, yet I also felt happy. I reached out and hugged him, nestling into his embrace. It feels like I'm dreaming, Quincy. I want to marry you right now. Quincy gently stroked my head and softly replied, okay. Lost in Quincy's embrace, I suddenly pushed him away. No, that's not right. Angry, I said, on the day Tiffany got engaged, I saw you lose your composure in the study. Quincy paused, slightly stunned, then said after a moment, my loss of composure had nothing to do with her. It was because of you. Confused, I asked, me? Your brother had already laid it out for me, out of consideration for you. He would help me, but he also bluntly pointed out the harsh reality that a disabled person like me doesn't deserve you. Quincy's gaze darkened slightly. Even though I knew it, that statement still stung, and I reluctantly had to accept it. I thought back carefully. I was devastated at that moment, automatically assuming it was Quill who sent that humiliating message about Quincy. In fact, the name in the chat was just a username, with no note attached. I usually label my brothers as Big Brother, Second Brother, and so on in my contacts. I never paid attention to their usernames. Quincy looked at me with tender eyes and said, now, I can finally stand in front of you. I looked up at him happily. I stood on tiptoe and kissed his lips. As we kissed, Quincy's breathing grew heavier. Feeling the intense heat radiating from Quincy, my cheeks flushed red. His hand, resting on my waist, slipped under my shirt, causing me to shiver. I quickly refused. No, my waist hurts. Quincy carried me towards the bedroom. He replied seriously, it's okay, I'll be gentle. Quincy, how have you become such a rogue after 3 years? He looked down at me, a slight smile playing on his lips. I learned it from you. I returned to the country but didn't go home. I stayed in the villa with Quincy, until a week later, I received a call from my eldest brother. Now, immediately, come back home. With that, the call ended. Oh no, the boss is angry, Quincy. Looking at my worried expression, couldn't help but smile. I'll go with you. What? I looked at him anxiously. Wouldn't his going with me just add fuel to the fire? In the end, Quincy insisted on accompanying me home. Standing at the doorstep, Quincy and I held hands tightly. I asked him, aren't you afraid? I have many brothers. He smiled gently. Not afraid. With you here. I smiled back. Yes, I'll protect you. The cold voice of my eldest brother came from the intercom at the door. Don't block the doorway, come inside. Quincy and I looked at each other and smiled. I shook our intertwined hands. Excitedly, I said, "Let's go, I'm bringing you home. Today, we'll set the wedding date."